Hi, this is Farrell. Welcome back to Robot Tod Progress. This is page 0 and 1 of issue 4, and that's my original thumbnail for the page, a little more refined. And then I was looking at Taiyo Matsumoto's Sunny, which is like one of my favorite series, and I just kind of liked that drawing a lot and thought it would be nice to have like a reverse shot of that, which was on the cover. Like the last, if you go and watch the last video, you can see me working on that. But I just flipped it in Photoshop to use as reference. There's no time lapse of me penciling on this one. I had to get reference for the birds there on the right. You can see they're really rough at this stage, but I ended up scouring the internet for a couple of pictures that I liked of birds flying and use that as a model. And also changed the car quite a bit from my initial just sketch. I'm like, okay, I kind of remember how to draw it, and then I had to actually do that thing in Photoshop where I flipped it the other way to really look at it and be like, oh, okay, I got to keep the shape somewhat consistent, I guess. I mean, it's still not 100%. Like the dials and stuff on the dashboard, I added all that, and even the little animals and characters you see kind of crowding around the car and even on the cover at all. They just sort of magically appeared there. But I kind of wanted the story to start out with like little critters crowding and stuff, but I got the idea of there's like the finished pencils right there. That's the finished stage before I start inking, and then here I'm inking with the brush. But I got the idea of adding a little bit of backstory exposition to the beginning, instead of Fern and Sept and Todd talking and telling like, what did you do? What did you do? You know, I thought it would be nice to have like a few pages like while they're going to meet each other of sort of like flashbacking, you know. So like Todd's doing a little description here, and the all the text on the left, which like took me a long time to figure out what I wanted him saying there, talking about how they found this car, abandoned car, and that he repaired it. And then I'm gonna have Fern, as she's jumping down off the thing, kind of remembering like what happened to her since the last time we saw her. And then when they come together, they don't really have to do any of that like catch up stuff. There's going to be enough action and stuff too, I think, you know, that it's just gonna it would just feel kind of clunky to me to have this like, okay, let's have this little conversation and then, you know, go into this action. So rather than do that, I figured like that we could just glimpse into their memories in a few pages without it affecting the like, I guess, timeline of this current timeline of the story. Yeah, hopefully it all makes sense once I get it down on paper. I just, right now it's, I'm going to have it written in a text document, but it's just getting a little hard for me to articulate my reasonings for this. But that's as close as I can do to explain why I changed this page from my original thumbnail of Fern hopping down. I still want to use that thumbnail, I think maybe on the next spread or the next page. I want to, you know, have her another reverse shot of her leaping down after Sept and Todd are out of their car and walking towards her and stuff. You see me here, I'm coloring and toning. It looks like right now I'm mostly using like ink. I've been using less black ink, and more watercolor, like black watercolor and Payne's Gray. Yeah, someone a while back recommended Payne's Gray to me, and I think I was using it with my gouache set, but with the watercolor set, it didn't have that on my palette. So I had a tube of Payne's Gray. I think I may either bought one or just had one from years ago, or whatever. I keep all my watercolor tubes and everything in like glass jars with screw top lids to keep them fresh, so they you know, will survive for years and years without drying out. The Payne's Gray is probably what I'm doing right there, adding a little tone, you know, dark tone with it. You can get, if you use without diluting it too much, it almost looks black if it's just like straight out of the tube and, you know, not much dilution to it. Like if you just have your brush wet and twirl it along the little mound, squeeze out some of the tube, and, you know, then it'll dry after a little while, and then, you know, you have to add water to reactivate it. So like a wet brush, and then twirling your brush on the little mound a few times will get the hue on the brush. And that actually, if I want to darken something up, but I just don't want to go like black ink or just straight black watercolor, I use that Payne's Gray, and it kind of acts as like a black almost. Like it has like a sort of like a blue tinge to it. There's like a coolness to it. So it's like a cool gray, like a really dark, cool gray. And then you can dilute it too to get like a, a lighter gray if you don't want anything like, that dark. But I actually put it on my palette and then forgot about it. And then I just started trying it, and it's just like, oh, this actually works better than just using black. In a lot of instances, circumstances, seems like it was better. Now I'm getting to this weird point where I like the way it looks, but a lot of times after I color it, I'm like, oh, that looks fine, it looks finished, whatever. But going back and watching the video as I'm putting this video together, a lot of times I kind of like the sort of sparseness of the just sort of black and white with just a little bit of color here and there. Like, and I realized that that's like the Sunny example from Matsumoto Sunny that I showed, where he actually does that, where it's like the interior's in color, but everything outside looks like uncolored. And it makes this really nice depth to it. I kind of wish I had done that more, but I figured like there's enough negative space and white, like kind of like in the smoke and in the sky and stuff. It's okay. Even like that I have lettering on there that's white. I kind of feel like if I didn't color the whole thing, that would be kind of weirdly inconsistent with the rest of the comic. Like the way the lettering pops, like once I'm done coloring it and I scan it and then clean up all the lettering and stuff, I feel like the whitest part of the page should be in the letters, unless I had the whole thing like black and white, or I used white, the negative space of the paper, use that more. I might even want to add color to the word balloons, just to differentiate them from the rest of the artwork. It's like, okay, we're reading this. This is like, it is part of the art, but it's also separate from what the characters are seeing. As a viewer of this, not like that it's a movie or whatever, it's a comic, we're reading this, but it's a visual medium. So the perspective of the reader, you see the whole thing, but I'm imagining I'm one of the characters like Todd, or, I mean, this seems like it should go without saying, but, they don't actually see the word balloons floating there or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't imagine, it's like they're just seeing the landscape in front of them, and there's things they're seeing that we're not seeing. But we're also seeing things that they're not seeing. I feel like it's a lot different than like, what your experience with a movie or a TV show or something. Like a comic is its like own language. In order for me to differentiate, I guess, between the artwork that's the characters are interacting with and the art that the reader's interacting with, like, okay, this is their dialogue. We're not hearing them say this, we're seeing them say this. So I like that to be the only thing that's white, unless it's like a highlight or something, like on Todd's helmet or whatever. So like originally I was thinking like, oh, cool, I won't even have to color Todd that much because he's just a white dude, like a white robot with the yellow stripes, and that's like the only part I'll have to render. But every time I paint one of these pages, I'm like adding subtle tones to Todd. It's like if you had like an orb or like a basketball, like a volleyball, say, because those are like white. So you had a volleyball in real life and you held it up. You tried to paint it, like, oh, I want to paint this. It's like, I know this is white. You wouldn't just paint like, a white canvas with white paint on top. It's like you'd want the background to be a different tone so that the white of the volleyball would pop. But then as you're painting it and looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, I can see that the bottom of it, wherever the light source, the opposite of the light source is, that's a completely different color than what, it's like gray, or it could be whatever, depends what reflected light is around it. It could be green or pink or whatever. I like the way I'm doing it, but I would be nice if I wasn't doing lettering and stuff to try some more interesting techniques like that. If you were paying attention to the video part of this, you can see I lettered most of this page, and I saved the last couple of little word balloons there on the bottom right for last, just because I wasn't totally happy with how I wanted Todd to be saying that particular line. But that's pretty much the finish before I scanned it, or that's the scan of it, but before I cleaned it up. And then there's the cleaned up version. You can see that's the difference between those two. So that's the page process for this time. We got a big cartel store, me and my partner Soph, with all our books on there. And I have a Patreon too, where you can read all these Robot Tod pages. Just starts at $2 a month. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.